Hi, I'm Erin Power.
And I'm Laura Rupsis.
We're certified health coaches, and this is Health Coach Radio.
This podcast is about the art, science, and business of health coaching.
We share our insider tips to help you become a better coach and entrepreneur.
And we interview expert guests to discover how they've made it in this growing field.
It's time for health coaches to make an impact.
It's time for Health Coach Radio.
In this episode, we welcome PD Mangan. We asked our community of listeners and health coaches who is leading the way in the men's health space, and PD's name came up time and again. As it turns out, PD doesn't just work with men, but as a man in his 60s who's defying the conventional laws of aging, he definitely attracts a crowd of male followers who want to tap into his wisdom. PD has amassed a huge following on Twitter, arguably the most argumentative of social platforms, and sure enough, PD has some very strong opinions about health and wellness approaches that color outside the lines of conventional wisdom. What I liked about our conversation was the conviction and confidence with which he shared his point of view. You gotta own it. We'd love to have you screenshot your podcast player and tag us on Instagram at Health Coach Radio. Don't forget, the show notes for this episode and all previous episodes can be found at primalhealthcoach.com/radio. At Health Coach Radio, we are all about raising the voices of practicing health, fitness, and nutrition coaches and helping to drive this exploding industry forward. With that in mind, our show is proudly brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute, an approved educational provider with the National Board of Health and Wellness Coaches. This means that our graduates can become eligible to sit for the NBHWC credentialing exam to become a board-certified health and wellness coach. Stay tuned to the very end of the show, where Laura will talk a bit more about our advanced coaching course that will deliver you to coaching mastery and satisfy the educational requirements to sit for that board exam. You can always learn more at primalhealthcoach.com/level2 as well. Now let's get into the meat of our discussion with this highly requested guest. Please enjoy our conversation with PD Mangan.
All right, PD, thank you so much for joining us today and gracing us with your presence for the next hour or so. Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm good. Very good. Thanks. And thanks for inviting me. Glad to be here.
Oh, you're so welcome. A little bit of backstory for everybody listening. Erin and I interview a lot of people that specialize in women's health, coach women predominantly. And we were looking for somebody that can take the other side of that coin, that work with a lot of men, and kind of speak to maybe health coaching in this space a little bit. And so you popped up as someone who would be a good example of that. We know you work with more than just men, but this is your perception in the marketplace. So this is why we reached out to you. So would you mind just giving us a little bit of a backstory about you, kind of how you started, how you got here, your origin story?
Okay. Well, it kind of goes way back into my interest in health and fitness. It's like say starting around age 19 or 20, something like that. I decided that, being healthy and fit was a good idea. So I, launched right in, made plenty of mistakes along the way as far as what I was doing. But anyway, that's when I started. And I did a degree in microbiology at university, studied pharmacology at the grad level, no graduate degree though. But so I have a background in science and have worked in it in my life. And so I was always interested in it. And then, so for many years, I was, like I said, I was interested in health and fitness, and I practiced it according to what I thought was the best way to do it. And then when I was in my 40s, I came down with chronic fatigue syndrome. And so it was all very mysterious, and I went to many doctors about it. Nobody could figure anything out. And so at some point along after many years of this, I kind of got the idea that if I was ever going to get out of this, I was going to have to figure it out for myself. And so I started doing that. And by, diving into the scientific and medical literature. And anyway, well, long story short, I did figure it out. And so I got a lot better. And then, at some point when I was doing this, I had this idea. I thought, well, if I ever do figure it out, I need to write a book about this.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, later when I was better, I thought, oh yeah, well, I was going to write a book about this. So I did. And that was my first book. And then when that was done, I thought, okay, what do I do now? Well, I guess I'll write another one. And so I just kept at it, and I've written half a dozen books. And I have a website. So I was writing articles for my website and so on. And I kept at it. It's since the topic of our discussion today is health coaching, I'll tell you that what I was doing in terms of writing books and having my website is a pretty lousy business model. I was doing what people, I was reading about this, how to do this and so on. And, a lot of people were saying, yeah, this is what you should do, have a website and get people to your website and get them to buy your books and so on. But, so I did this for a few years and, after a while I was kind of, banging my head against the wall, trying to figure out what am I going to do? Because I wanted to do this for a living. I was still working at a quote unquote real job the whole time. Anyway, I eventually did figure something out with the help of some people, mainly people that I found on Twitter whom I became friends with and gave me some advice. So I did that, and things improved markedly. So one of the things I was doing was being very active on Twitter, which is my main venue these days. And then I was contacted a couple of years ago by someone who is now my business partner, saying, "Look, we ought to do health coaching." And, or you ought to do health coaching and I can help you do it, basically. Cause I had no experience in this matter, at least, I mean, in terms of running the business. I had clients up to that time, more or less informally. But anyway, so we got going and it worked out very well. And so now that's what I'm doing mainly. And, in terms of making a living, still very active on Twitter, but the health coaching, I have a lot of clients and it's all going very well.
Okay.
Love that.
Good story. Wow. So you went backwards. You wrote books first and then health coached second. And I wonder, when you said writing books and putting articles on your website is a lousy business model.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that too.
Yeah, I'm curious, like, is that from an income perspective or an impact perspective or both?
Right. So from an impact perspective, I suppose it's not really bad. So looking back on publishing these books and the time that I spent on it and the time I spent working on my website, what it did for me was give me some credibility. Mm-hmm. So that is big, for sure. In terms of income, though, for people who write books, it's just very difficult to make a substantial living unless somebody becomes, a best-selling writer or something. And my understanding is even many of them don't make all that much money.
Right.
So that's what's hard about it from a making a living point of view. But in retrospect, I'm glad I did it anyway because of the credibility angle.
Nice.
Yeah, I could see that. And I think, in fact, I know Mark Sisson would agree with you. Mark Sisson is, our founder and one of our mentors, and he's written several books. And people ask him, how do you get published? And they'll ask him questions about this, and he'll say, it's different today. You don't make the same kind of money you do as an author. You write for different reasons. Credibility is certainly one of them, right?
Right.
Paying it forward. Yeah. So, I love that. And I'm going to ask you a question, and I hope you don't mind if I ask, but how old were you when you started your health coaching practice and you started this transition?
Well, so as far as actual health coaching with private clients, it's only been a few years.
And you're 66 right now.
And I'm 66. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So the reason I ask this is because my role at the school that I represent is as admissions director. And I talk to people 60 and up all the time. They are now in a position where they are financially independent enough that they can go actually do something they love doing, right? Instead of the career that has built them some financial independence. But the number one question is, am I too old? Is it too late? And I say resoundingly, God, no, are you kidding me? Now is a great time, but I'm 50. I'm not in my 60s yet. I started when I was in my 40s. I would love your perspective on this.
Okay. Well, no, it certainly isn't too late. I feel very fortunate in that I'm able to do this for a living. Normally, standard retirement age is age 65. And that's when men and women my age are retiring. Actually, it's interesting if you look into this, because like a majority of people who are eligible for Social Security at 62 take it.
Yeah.
They presumably because they don't like their jobs. But in any case, I feel fortunate that I was able to do this and was able to just leave my real job, so to speak. So no, it's definitely not too late. I feel that I have, well, presumably the people that you're talking to that are asking this question, whether it's too late, I presume if they want to become a health and fitness coach, that they're probably in decent shape themselves. Right. So that certainly helps. I feel that a lot of people come to me because of an example that I set, that you can be in shape at my age. So it's definitely not too late. I hope to do this for many years to come. So yeah, I would encourage people, at any age really. And another thing is that, with regarding someone my age is that, more people my age will come to me for that reason. Right.
Exactly.
They see, well, somebody who's approximately my age will see, oh, well, really, it really is possible to be healthy and fit at that age. So, I'm going to check it out.
Yeah, I love that last point, especially because, I was thinking about my own coaching practice. I would have started in my early 40s and, working with women in their early 40s. And then it's like, what's this going to look like when I'm 50? And it's like, oh, I'll just work with women in their 50s. And when I'm 60, I'll work with women in their 60s. And they're still my peers. And I still know what they're going through to some degree. I always wonder when we speak to folks like yourself and Mark and Tony Horton, we spoke to, if you ever get annoyed about people saying at your age.
No, I don't get annoyed at it. Actually, I take it as a compliment, because, I'll tell you, I don't consider myself in terms of health and fitness to be extraordinary or anything like that. I just feel that I'm an example of what most people should be like, what most men should be like at my age. There's no reason why you can't be lean and relatively muscular and fit and healthy. But unfortunately, in this day and age, as standards have slipped so much, people think that it's just normal not to be that way. Whereas I think it's normal to be healthy and fit. So yeah, no, I don't think that I don't take that as any kind of an insult or anything at my age. No, I take it quite the opposite way.
I actually love that soundbite. I'm an example of what a man in his 60s should look like. And it's so wild that we have been conditioned to believe that you're the exception, like you're just some outlier. This is actually, this is going to probably get Laura and I geeking out into our evolutionary biology sort of ancestral health stuff that we love to talk about. But it's like the human animal is designed to be epic for decades. And then, but we've been conditioned, and we see this a lot. So again, we talk a lot. Laura and I both work with female clients, and most of our coaches that seem to come on work with female clients. But I've been turning my attention to like males in my peer group. My female peers are doing perimenopause and menopause, and this is a whole thing that's happening. But then you look at the men in their 40s and cruising toward their 50s and what's happening with them, and no one's talking about it.
Menopause.
Yeah, andropause, or whatever it is, where testosterone starts to plummet, and that's difficult for a man. I'm really out of my league here. I don't understand it enough because I work with women, but it's almost like we're, specifically with men, we're not putting as much attention on this change that happens in middle age,
Right. Well, in my view, in recent years, there's been a lot more talk. In other words, you see more references and so on to testosterone replacement therapy for men. And while I don't have anything against it, I think that it's probably resorted to a little too quickly. That a lot of these things can be fixed by healthy diet, good exercise, weight loss, of course, building muscle, and so on. And there has been what's been called a secular decline in testosterone levels. In other words, a 45-year-old man today has lower testosterone levels than a 45-year-old man 30 years ago. So it's not just age. And what that tells me, what I think it tells me, is that it has a lot to do with the other changes that are going on. For example, more obesity, metabolic syndrome, unhealthy eating, lack of exercise, and so on. So in my view, men should be looking at that first of all, before they start thinking about, medical therapy, testosterone replacement, or something like that. There's certainly a possibility that for many men, they do everything right and they still have lower testosterone than they would like. And, that would be, in my view, the point to start looking at an option like testosterone therapy. But I think the number of men who are doing that would probably decrease substantially if they got their lifestyle, diet, and exercise in line first.
Yeah. What are you finding? So, in the realm of the men that you work with, does it tend to be a particular demographic, men between a certain age? Does it tend to do you think this is one of the big drivers is this kind of lower testosterone, or is that bringing people to you, or is, they may not even know that? It may just be like, hey, what you're suffering from, this weight gain around this area, this is what we think is driving this. Tell us a little bit about the journey you take clients through and for the men you work with.
Many of my clients, some of my clients are interested in the low testosterone angle or the testosterone angle. But I'd say that's not a consideration for the majority of them. Most of them are they're caught up in the same things that are going on society wide in terms of obesity, being out of shape, metabolic syndrome. The particular demographic that I work with tends to be middle-aged and older. But that said, I have plenty of younger clients too. The younger men and younger women too, because I have female clients as well. They're caught up in all the same things that are happening now in terms of obesity and unhealthy lifestyle and so on. And so, I mean, you can imagine, say, a man or woman between the ages of 25 and 30, and they find themselves very overweight. They ask themselves, well, geez, this doesn't look very sustainable. I better get this corrected in short order here, or I'm going to be looking at an unhealthy life, all progressively downhill and so on. So so I get clients from all those demographics. Definitely middle age and up tends to be more of them. They they see me. Most of my clients come to me. They find out about me through Twitter or through my email list, and they can see that I'm doing something very different in terms of both diet and exercise. So they're attracted to that. One of the things I'll tell you that's different, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself here, but is my view on exercise. So a really standard, as far as I can tell, view of online training or in-person training for that matter is lots of exercise. So they want them to be in the gym an hour a day, 5 days a week, this kind of thing. And most of the men that I deal with, they've got careers, they've got families. They say to themselves, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. I get up in the morning, I go off to work, I come back in the evening. I can't spend an hour a day in the gym. And my coaching does not advocate that or anywhere close to that. I have people training less than 1 hour a week. So, and I say that publicly, right? That this is what I advocate, and they see that and they go, wow, okay, that sounds pretty good. So let's hear more about what this guy has to say.
Ooh, yeah, let's hear more. Let's hear more about that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, all right. So I'm a huge advocate of strength training, not, however you want to define it, cardio. So in my view, strength training is the most important thing you can do, for men or women, most important form of exercise. There is a false dichotomy, in my view, between strength training or resistance training or weightlifting, all different ways of saying about the same thing, and on the one hand, and cardiovascular exercise. The kind of strength training I advocate is definitely cardiovascular exercise too. Just to give you an example, I often take my heart rate when I'm doing my workout. And allegedly, at my age, my maximum heart rate is somewhere in the 160s. And my heart rate gets up to 156 when I'm doing my weight training. So this is what I advocate. Now, I look at exercise. You can compare it to a drug. So if you have a drug, you want to find the right dose, and then you want to apply it at the right time and with the right frequency. If you found out that 2 aspirin would cure your headache, that doesn't mean you want to take 10 aspirin, to cure it even better or to get it, cure it faster. You just don't want to do that. Likewise, with exercise, you want to find the right dose and you want to apply it with the right frequency. And crucially, in terms of exercise, the right intensity. And so that doesn't mean that more exercise is better. And there is actually some scientific backing for this in terms of the hormetic effect of exercise. A little bit goes a long way. And you start doing more and you get on the wrong side of the hormetic curve. And it is possible to become in worse health by doing too much exercise. And actually probably high level athletes are generally a good example of this. They're always getting injured. They're prone to respiratory infections, for example. So you want to apply the right dose. And so there's, in terms of strength training, I'd say that the biggest mistakes are that, the biggest mistake is probably not doing it.
Right.
But the typical mistakes that people make, in my view, are working out too long, working out too often, but not working out hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you get the intensity part, the hard enough part right, you don't have to work out that often. For example, my current training regimen, and which is the same I advocate for most of my clients, takes me a workout takes me 25 minutes, and I do it twice a week. And then on other days, the only exercise I'm doing is walking. So that's what I advocate. And I think that the high volume training is counterproductive and also not feasible for many people. Even if it weren't counterproductive, maybe it's a good thing that it isn't feasible for many people. So it's a very different point of view. And so many of my clients are interested in that. They say, wow, I can do that. I can set aside 2 25-minute sessions a week to, like before work or, whenever they can do it. So that's the form of exercise I advocate, not endless, light to moderate volume training that so many people do.
Oh my gosh. I personally overtrained myself right into prediabetes. So I can relate to that. Like for me, stress was always the big triggers. It was my overtraining in my job that I hated at the time. And it seemed to be the thing that really triggered that metabolic dysfunction for me. And then also I look back on the decades I wasted 2 to 3 hours a day in the gym every day. And I have so much regret. So I'm just really excited about this. And what's really wild is that I've shifted to the similar kind of model that you're talking about here. And it certainly didn't lose any fitness, probably gained it, and gained a whole bunch of time and mental sanity. And, but what's really difficult is that we're so deeply programmed to believe that more is better.
Right.
So if I try to share this with clients of mine, like, hey, I want you to actually dial back on those workouts, they're so resistant. Do you find that?
Yes. I've had many clients that were exercising too much and spending a lot of time in the gym, or spending some time in the gym, and then when they're not in the gym, they want to go out running. And very, very common thing. So, among people who are conscientious as far as health and fitness goes, this is very common. And yes, I get them to dial back, or try to get them to dial back. A really common question when I go over how to work out and how much they should be working out, and is, well, can I add a couple days of running in there, or something like that? I tell, I say, well, that's up to you. I wouldn't advise it. But a really, among these people, a very common thing is that they're tired all the time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I get that all like, well, they come to me, I'm tired all the time. I can't figure out why. And then I look at their exercise schedule and I say, well, it's pretty obvious to me why you're tired all the time. You're out there cranking it day after day after day. And, you need rest. You're overtraining. And so, yeah, it's quite common to see this.
Yeah.
Tired, hungry, and sore is basically how you live your life. And then what I find people will say it, because they'll try to sneak that in, just like you said, is like, okay, well, I'll do your thing, but I'm also just going to do one or two other workouts or runs. And they'll say, because it's my happy place or it's my stress relief. And I get that, but also I don't always believe it. I don't always believe it. I believe that's a lot of conditioning. Like, I just think you're a little conditioned to thinking you need to do more, that more is better.
There are some people though that it's the endorphins, right? It's the metabolic, it's the hormonal, the immediate. It's just like food, right? The dopamine hit that you get with certain foods, it's that adrenaline and that epinephrine hit that you get with exercise that gives you that temporary happy place. But in both instances, whether it's food or exercise, the long-term effect is not good.
Right. And I'll tell you something. I've been there, definitely. I used to be a runner, and I had to go out running every day, or otherwise I just didn't feel right. And they talk about positive addiction. So if you read the running magazines, they talk about this. I don't know if they're talking about it anymore. It's been a long time since I read those, but that they talk about, and whether you want to call it a positive addiction or however it works, yes, it does. It certainly elevates your mood, and so you become you want it all the time, regardless of what it might be doing to your body. So yeah, I've certainly been there. I understand where they're coming from, but I think once you get away from that, that it becomes less compelling in the sense of, if somebody was doing what I was doing, for example, running every day, and then they stopped running, yeah, maybe a few days they would be like, I don't like this, but then it becomes like, oh, well, this is normality. Okay, I don't need to run every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the body adjusts, right? It adapts to the change. And so there's going to be a period of adjustment that people have to get used to. But I think some of this too is, we're telling them they need to adjust their exercise schedule. We're in their minds, they've operated for years that we have to do that. Otherwise, the ... my mood suffers, or I gain weight, or I'm tired all the time. But that's in the absence of not adjusting the dietary strategy as well. Right?
Absolutely. So yes, one of the reasons that people do this is because they've been told from above that the way to be healthy is to exercise all the time. The standard, again, from above, mainstream view of how to lose weight, which of course is a problem many of these people have, they want to lose weight, is move more, eat less. And this has been a real failure in terms of helping people lose weight. I just this morning, I was reading a recently published article about metabolic syndrome. And this is by a doctor whose name I recognized, who's written a lot in this area and so on. And he said, the solution to metabolic syndrome is calorie restriction and exercise. Okay. And I was like, come on, this, if it was that easy, or if that was the solution, then why do we have such a problem? so that's one reason that people want to exercise a lot. Here's another thing. In the United States, the exercise guidelines that they put out, like from the CDC, for example, I believe it is the one who does this. It's all based on volume.
Right.
Right. You're supposed to exercise 150 minutes a week.
Right.
And with no consideration for what you might be doing or the intensity of what you might be doing. So people see this and they say, well, okay, I got to be exercising 150 minutes a week if I want to be healthy. And that's just mistaken. So that, that's where that comes from. Another thing about these exercise guidelines may be tangential to the point, but they're put out there. Part of the logic of their construction is that they think people will not do harder exercise or something. So they tell them, well, go out and walk 150 minutes a week, something like that, right? It's this setting a low bar kind of thing, because they think that most people won't do more. I mean, and they could be right, but for somebody that knows how to exercise properly, that knows some of the science behind exercise, that intensity trumps volume. You don't need to be exercising all the time. And a little bit goes a long way. So once you get that figured out, which is one thing I help my clients to do, one thing I'm doing, then, a couple sessions a week of hard exercise does the job.
Yeah. Yeah. I think those movement guidelines, you're right. They're just super vague. It's like, it's 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise a week, which is right in the middle. It doesn't speak to the high intensity efforts. It doesn't speak to the NEAT, right? The strolling around, the just non-exercise activity, right? It's this nebulous spot in the middle, that, well, we call it the black hole. We kind of call it the black hole. It's like nothing really happens there. I mean, maybe it's better than sitting on the couch. Maybe that's who they're speaking to, is
right.
really sedentary people, but it is not a dial mover in that zone. That's for sure. It was more attention to the intensity of the exercise is what that's really lacking. Like those ends of the spectrum, the very, very high and the very, very low, I think is where the sweet spot is.
Right. So people like us, the kind of people we are and the kind of people that we deal with, our clients, and what our clients hope to be are, we're a minority of the population. So yes, most people really are not getting up off the couch. So you can see the logic behind their recommendation is like, look, get up and go walking for 30 minutes, for God's sake. So they want people to do that. But in terms of, what science says about exercise, these guidelines are, let's say, I think they're off the mark.
Yep. I remember Aaron and I both sat for the national board exam for health and wellness coaches. So we had to understand these CDC guidelines, and they did speak to that 150 minutes of moderate exercise a week, but they did say, or 75 minutes of high intensity, but they never defined what that was at all.
And that sounds really daunting. Oh, just do 75 minutes of high intensity. Right. Somebody was like, what? I can't do that for 75 minutes. They're not thinking about piecemealing.
There's zero guidance given to it at all whatsoever. So this is the problem. It's like when somebody goes to a doctor and they are borderline, like they're insulin resistant, right? They got a high A1C, their trigs, their blood work's looking kind of wonky. And so the doctor just says, you gotta lose weight. You gotta watch what you're eating. You gotta start moving. And there's zero guidance as to what that actually means. So now we're left to our own devices. And in our minds, it's the calories in, calories out paradigm. And this is what traps everybody, it in both men and women. I just had someone who's going to sign on with me, another woman who's like, for years, all I needed to do was count my calories and I was fine. It's not working anymore. Now what do I do? And so she's now 3 kids in. She's probably about to turn 40. These are the people that we see all the time. And I have a feeling that these men that you're working with are probably telling you something very similar.
Yes. Certainly, many of them, when they were younger, they, were able to, it's a similar story, common story that, yeah, I used to be able to eat whatever I want, but, now I can't. And so, yes, a lot of them have been trying, and they have not had at least enough success doing what they're doing, and they want to figure out what they're doing wrong, and what they may be doing wrong differs from person to person, but it's what they have in common is that these are all things that they're getting from out there somewhere, this information, and so they're getting incorrect information in my view. A very common thing that I have said to me when I'm consulting with my clients is I'll tell them something, I'll say, well, do X or don't do Y. And they'll say, I thought you weren't supposed to do X, and I thought Y was good for you.
Right.
And I say, well, yeah, I understand. That's what they say out there, but you're not going to lose your body fat that way. So yeah, tons of misconceptions out there. Exercise, the same thing, especially with strength training. I actually like it when I've got a client that is new to strength training, because I can just tell them, look, this is how you want to do it, and so on. And they go, okay, I'll do that. Other men, mostly men, but also some women who have a lot of strength training experience, and they come to me, and I'm basically forced to telling them, look, that's not the right way to do it, and there are so many myths and misconceptions about strength training. And another thing, you start talking about, and you maybe have experienced this yourselves online, is strength training is one of the most acrimonious topics there is. Mm-hmm. It's guys, I suppose, mainly, they get very acrimonious about if you question their preferred methods of weight training. There's so many out there who say, I know the way, and the way you're talking about is all wrong, and you're an idiot, and this kind of thing. It's incredible the discussions you can get in about this. It hardly even seems rational most of the time.
Yeah. Lots of fighting.
It's same thing with diet, right? Same thing with nutritional.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So I've seen you on Twitter say 3 little S's that I think kind of summarize your approach, which is sun, steak, and steel.
Right.
So do you mind kind of telling us a little bit about like how those 3 words kind of wrap up into sort of describing your philosophy here?
Okay, great. Yeah, they do. I look at sun, steak, and steel as sort of my shorthand for the way I think people can be healthy and fit. So sun refers to, obviously, the sun, getting some sun exposure and getting outside in the fresh air. Very important. So that's that part of it. Steak is a metaphor. Is that the right word I want? Anyway, it stands for real whole food. Mm-hmm. So in my view, the single biggest thing that everybody could do to get healthier would be to stop eating ultra processed food. To my mind, this is the single biggest factor behind the obesity epidemic in America and increasingly everywhere else in the world. The main ingredients of ultra processed food that cause so much harm: sugar, seed oils, aka vegetable oils, and refined grains. So these things are ubiquitous. People are eating them massively. Something like 60% of calories of the average American is consumed as ultra processed food. You should be eating real whole food. And so steak is my shorthand for real whole food. Of course, it also stands for meat, which has been very much vilified, still is all the time. I see this all the time. There's still a huge campaign out there trying to get people to go vegan and so on, which is a big mistake. I guess I don't have to keep saying in my view. This is all in my view, but it is a big mistake. When I say steak, it stands for all of that. Eat a steak, eat real whole food. Don't eat the garbage that's sold in the middle aisles of the supermarket that has brand names all over the boxes and bags and bottles that the big food companies want you to consume because it's much more profitable than real whole food. Here's an interesting little fact that I've learned from talking to clients all over the world. So I've had many clients in India, in the Middle East, in Europe, in South America, aside from the United States. They all tell me that those foods are always sold in the middle aisles of the supermarket all over the world. Those people, the supermarket people and the food manufacturers are not dumb. They know what to do to make the most money. And the real whole food is sold on the perimeter of the supermarket. It's like an afterthought. Yeah. And so anyway, that's what they do. So eat real whole food. STEAL refers to strength training, which, really in the scheme of things, hardly anybody does.
Right.
And it's so important. It like I mentioned earlier, there's a false dichotomy between strength training and cardiovascular exercise. So people should be doing strength training, and it is so important for many reasons. One is because having more muscle and training your muscles is just so important for metabolic health. Another is a kind of an overlooked factor, I guess, is that as people get older, they lose muscle.
Right.
And they lose a lot of muscle. I don't think people realize just how much. When by the time somebody is 80 years old, they can have lost half the muscle that they had when they were 20. And so people are overlooking this as an anti-aging measure, strength training. So that's what STEAL stands for. I believe everyone, young or old, men and women, should be training for strength.
Yeah, those are great. Those are great list of tactics or important things. I think when you're talking about steak or real whole foods, I was thinking about something that I've been trying to school my clients up on, which I kind of adapted from Ted Naiman, the PE diet, the protein and energy thing. How it's like when this kind of goes back to talking about calories, which we did talk about kind of adjacently a little while ago, but it's like a lot of people are conditioned to think that eating is for calories.
Right.
And it's not that it's not, like for fuel to make energy. But Ted Naiman's approach, and I've been kind of adapting this too, is like, well, fuel, minerals, nutrition, let's call it, and then amino acids, this protein leverage hypothesis, like all of these things are queuing up hunger signals, and all of these things contribute to satiety, and foods that satisfy that have breaks.
Right.
And all those hyper-processed foods, they don't have breaks. That's my main problem with them. There's zero breaks on those foods.
Right. Um, One thing I tell my clients is it's all about, in terms of fat loss, which is, the majority concern for most of my clients. It's about making sure your hunger is under control.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to show them the way to get their hunger under control so that they eat less. But then I always say that there are foods out there that will just easily override your hunger.
Mhm.
And these are the kind of foods that we think of as junk, basically. Some of them actually people don't think of as junk. They think it's all very healthy. Fruit juice might be a good
Right.
example.
Granola bars.
Right, granola bars, sure, exactly. Um, so uh, these foods will just override your hunger, and some of my clients have I guess you could call them eating problems, right? So, a common one is I'm sitting around in the evening and I just want to eat, and then I just start eating stuff. And I said, well, okay, we got to get your hunger under control, but if you've got a package of Oreos or a bag of Doritos in your pantry, it's just going to be calling you. You should not have those around at all, because they will override your hunger. And once you get into them, you can't stop. Um, I've used the example of, I don't eat much of these things. It's very rare, but like at Thanksgiving, last Thanksgiving, I was with family, and they brought out pumpkin pie with whipped cream on it, and I was eating this, and it tasted so good. And what's in my mind was, when can I get the next piece?
Right.
It's like the crack cocaine of foods, some of this stuff. So yes, the ultra processed foods, they're designed that way. These food companies that make these things have food scientists and engineers that are working very hard to make sure that you cannot resist their food. And of course, why wouldn't they? They want repeat customers. Ideally, they'd like to have you addicted to them. I mean, what's the best business model? Have your customers addicted to your product. So they're working very hard to make sure that you can't resist these foods. And so best thing is don't go near them.
Can I tell you an anecdote about that? My very first client ever was a food engineer whose job was to make and test processed foods. And I was like, great. Like, number one thing I'd love for you not to do is eat packaged and processed foods. And then the other thing she said was, how health and nutrition professionals will always say, shop the outside aisles because the inside aisles is raw. She's like, we love that. We love reminding shoppers that the inside aisles is where all the good stuff. Like we love that verbiage, because it kind of in a way conditions the people who are jonesing for this stuff to just go right to the inside aisles. Like she's like, that was the greatest marketing for us ever, was this whole outside aisle push.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So speaking of marketing, so you have a lot of Twitter followers. I think I just looked, like 112,000 Twitter followers. So why Twitter? Of all the kind of social media platforms, why that one? What do you think makes Twitter work for you? And if you were going to give a couple of tips for people that might want to kind of get out there, what's the best way to use Twitter?
Yeah, well, it's a surprisingly good question, because I look back on it, I think, I have 112,000 followers. I think, how did I do that? Some of it is well, so I guess I want to say some of it is luck, but as Scott Adams says, the best, the way to be successful is to put yourself out there where luck happens.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've tried to do. There are certain ways of tweeting that get more attention. For one thing, if you're adversarial, let me clarify that. I hate arguing with people on Twitter. Absolutely hate it. And I see this going on all the time. I go like how, I don't want to go anywhere near that. I hate arguing with people on Twitter. I mean, I hate arguing with people in general, but anyway, on Twitter also. But adversarial in the sense of, like showing that there are people and organizations out there that don't necessarily have your best interests in mind, and that they're screwing things up royally, and that what you're hearing from them is not the whole truth, or even sometimes the truth at all. And so this resonates with people. They, for one thing, if they've never heard that before, they kind of perk up and say, wow, really? What are you talking about here? Other people that maybe kind of suspect it want to, oh, wow, okay, this guy agrees with me, or he's providing some information that backs up what I think. So that kind of adversarial thing is pretty powerful. It is, in terms of tweeting, I have found also that you have to stop caring very much what people are going to think. Of course, everyone wants to be well thought of. You want people to think you're a good person and all this. I'm no different, but you can't be too afraid of the reactions to what you're going to write, because if you are fearful in that way, what you write is not going to be interesting.
Right.
And I had somebody just the other day, basically try to start an argument with me saying, the CDC says this, so you're all wrong. And I'm like, if I was just out here repeating what the CDC was saying, why would anybody, it's like, that's not interesting. The whole point is I disagree with them. So those are some of the things about tweeting. Why Twitter specifically? I don't know. I just got into it, and one thing led to another. Facebook was like, I don't know. It just didn't seem very interesting. Twitter is, I think somebody said something to the effect of Facebook is where you meet with people that you knew a long time ago and you stay in touch with, whereas Twitter is where you meet people you would like to be in touch with now. And I feel like there are so many interesting people on Twitter. I have learned so much myself from Twitter. It is incredible, absolutely incredible. If you're following the right people on Twitter, you are on, in terms of information anyway, you're on the cutting edge. Totally. So that's one reason I like Twitter.
Yeah. I think your advice is pretty solid for marketing in general. Kind of like, it's okay if people don't like it, post it anyway. Because if you try to make things that people like, it's boring, and it's probably not authentic either.
Right.
It's probably not an authentic message, and people are going to pick up on that and kind of just not pay attention, which is what we want.
Right.
Say what you mean and mean what you say and stick by it.
Right.
Have an opinion, take a stand. That's what draws people to you. And I spent 25 years in sales. And I learned through a mentor of mine who was like, you don't need everybody to like you and want to do business with you. You don't. And the more you try to appease everybody, the less successful you're going to be. You want to be someone that people like, but at the end of the day, you need just a solid group of core people that love you, and then refer you to other people. That's how you really grow a solid business.
Right.
So, That's
agree.
fantastic advice, PD. So clearly people can find you on Twitter. Where can they find you? How should they look for you?
My handle on Twitter is Mangan150. Mangan, that's my last name, 150. I also have a website, roguehealthandfitness.com. So those are the two main places they can find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was such a great conversation. I feel like we could talk for hours. There's so much that I know Erin and I agree with you on that we would love to just sort of like geek out maybe another time, but this was just so great. And thank you for sharing your journey and being an inspiration for other people that want to pick up the mantle and move in this direction.
Well, thanks very much. Thanks for inviting me on. It's been a pleasure.
This podcast was brought to you by Primal Health Coach Institute. To learn more about how to become a successful health coach, get in touch with us by visiting primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or if you're already a successful health coach, practitioner, influencer, or thought leader with a thriving business and an interesting story, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us at hello@primalhealthcoach.com and let us know why we need to interview you for Health Coach Radio. Thanks for listening.
Well, if you've been listening at Health Coach Radio, you'll know that we're all about raising the voices of practicing health, fitness, and nutrition coaches, but most importantly, helping to further legitimize this exploding industry. Erin and I have disclosed often that we're on the faculty of the Primal Health Coach Institute, founded by none other than the health and wellness legend Mark Sisson. And we've interviewed dozens of guests from just about every different health coaching program you can think of, and who practice in just about any conceivable way you can think of. But our allegiance is to the health coaching industry in its totality, first and foremost. It's our desire to continuously and unapologetically lift and promote this industry that nudged us to create this podcast for you in the first place. It's this same yearning that encouraged us to take the educational offering at our health coaching school to the next level. We are so proud to offer the Primal Health Coach Level 2 certification course, which when combined with our primary course, the Primal Health Coach certification course, not only satisfies the educational requirements to sit for the board exam, but is specifically designed to teach advanced coaching mastery. You will work closely with a small class of peers through this 12-week, very intensive, live online classroom experience to learn how to execute a coaching relationship that is truly transformational. You'll learn and practice how to ask powerful questions, what it means to hold space for your clients, but most importantly, how to actually do it. You'll learn about the craft of motivational interviewing and the nuances of habit change, goal setting, and accountability, and how to nurture your client's own inner knowing, their intuition, and their own self-efficacy, so that they will graduate from your care a truly transformed person. You want a big, successful, powerful coaching practice. And maybe you're devouring our episodes looking for the silver bullet that's going to launch your business into the upper echelons. We've said it a million times and we'll say it again. Your coaching skills are what will make or break you and set you apart for success in this field. So if you're looking to level up your coaching skills, and maybe dial up your credential and become a board-eligible health coach, look no further. You can learn more about PHCI's Level 2 program at primalhealthcoach.com/level 2. But if you would value talking to a real person about your path to being a masterful coach and perhaps a board-certified coach, book some time with me personally. You can access my calendar at primalhealthcoach.com/call. Or just call me. You can reach me at 844-307-7662. Thank you for listening to Health Coach Radio, and I hope I get to talk to you soon.